Fort Halstead always felt different at dawn. The air around the courthouse annex carried a strange blend of jet fuel, cold concrete, and the faint smell of coffee drifting from the MPs standing guard. Security cameras hummed softly under the ceiling. Every step echoed, every breath felt amplified. It was the kind of place where silence had rank, and on this particular morning, silence outranked everyone. At 0620 hours, Lieutenant Commander Elena Ward stood in that silence, her uniform crisp, her posture rigid, her face carved with the calm of someone who'd spent a lifetime holding storms inside. She wasn't tall, she wasn't flashy, she didn't look like someone who'd survived 5 combat deployments, or pulled men out of burning vehicles in Kandahar, or earned 2 Navy commendation medals before she was even 30. But her eyes carried the quiet weight of someone who'd been written off too many times, and learned to stop explaining herself. Today she wasn't here for her honor. She was here to defend her name from being erased, because the U.S. Military Awards Verification Board had flagged her commendations, all of them, as potential forgeries. And the civilian administrative judge assigned to review her case had already made his opinion loud and clear. These medals look fake to me. Honestly, who would believe a woman earned all this? He'd said that before even opening the case file. And that was why the hallway felt colder, heavier, more hostile than usual. Elena wasn't just fighting for medals, she was fighting for the truth, for the years no one had seen, for the sacrifices no one bothered to learn. At 0632 hours, the bailiff opened the courtroom door. Lieutenant Commander Ward, you may enter. Elena stepped inside, into a storm waiting to happen. Military courtrooms look nothing like the dramatic ones on TV. No grand oak furniture. No marble columns, just clean lines, steel edges, flags hanging motionless, and the ever-present hum of fluorescent lights. Judge Randall Keating sat behind the elevated desk, glasses perched low, wearing an expression that mixed boredom with irritation. He was the kind of man who talked like he was always right, even when he wasn't. Across from him sat 2 board members, Colonel Braxton, stiff and unreadable, Commander Ellis, gentle-eyed but cautious. Elena sat alone at the defense table. No attorney, no escort, no entourage. She had requested to defend herself, partly out of principle, partly because no JAG officer wanted to take a case where the judge had already decided the verdict. The room felt stacked against her. Judge Keating tapped her service jacket file with a long, dismissive finger. "Well, Lieutenant Commander Ward," he began, "I hope you understand why we're here. Your record is ambitious." That word again, ambitious. As if ambition were a crime. He lifted her medals, all neatly secured on display, and chuckled. Actually chuckled. "Look at this," he said to the board. "Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor, Navy Com with Combat Distinguishing Device. And you expect me to believe—" "Sir," Elena interrupted softly, "those citations can be verified by CENTCOM and JSOC archives. Operation Glass Dagger, Operation Nightweaver, and—" he raised his hand. "You'll speak when I tell you to speak." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Commander Ellis shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Keating continued flipping through her personnel file with the energy of someone reading a bad novel. "You claim to have saved 6 men from an ambush in Helmand Province. You claim to have neutralized a sniper nest single-handedly. You claim—" Elena spoke again, not loudly, just firmly. "I never claimed anything, sir. My team submitted the citations, and the field reports." He slammed the folder shut. "Enough." The room fell silent, a silence that felt more like a chokehold. "Lieutenant Commander Ward," he said, leaning back with smug confidence, "I've handled enough of these cases to know when a resume is inflated. And yours is practically a hot air balloon." Colonel Braxton narrowed his eyes, not at Elena but at the judge. The disrespect was too obvious. But Judge Keating kept going, enjoying his own voice. "In fact," he said with a smirk, "I'll be honest. These medals look fake." The words echoed like a shot in a closed canyon. Elena's fingers tightened around the edge of her table, knuckles white. He wasn't just accusing her of lying, he was accusing every soldier who had bled beside her, every medic who had patched her up, every commander who'd written those citations. He was spitting on the dead. Judge Keating reached toward the display of medals and tapped them mockingly. "Tell me, Lieutenant Commander, did you buy these online, or do you have someone making them for you?" Commander Ellis winced. Colonel Braxton stared at the judge like he'd lost his mind. But Keating didn't care. His ego filled the room like toxic gas. That was when the bailiff, looking nervous, walked briskly to the judge's bench. "Your Honor," he whispered, "there's someone here requesting to observe the hearing." Keating scoffed. "This is a closed review. Tell them to wait." The bailiff swallowed hard. "Sir, it's the courtroom door opened, everyone turned, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The man who entered wore more stars than most people ever saw up close. General Marcus Hale, 4-star general, commander of U.S. Joint Special Operations Command. A quiet legend. A man whose operations were whispered about in classified rooms. A man who'd led missions that would never make the news. He walked with calm authority. Not the loud kind. The kind that makes everyone else instinctively sit up straighter." Judge Keating's smirk faded instantly. The board members snapped to attention. Even the bailiff swallowed hard and stood taller. But General Hale didn't look at them. He looked only at Elena Ward. His expression, a mix of pride, relief, and a hint of something protective. He stepped forward. "Lieutenant Commander," he said warmly, "at ease. You don't salute in a courtroom." Her eyes widened just slightly. She hadn't expected him, of all people, to come. Judge Keating attempted a smile that looked more like a grimace. "General Hale," he said nervously, "to what do we owe the surprise?" Hale turned his head slowly, as if deciding how much of his disappointment to show. "I received word," he said, "that one of my finest officers was being accused of falsifying her service record." His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that meant danger. Keating attempted to regain control. "Well, sir, we haven't made any decisions yet." "You called her medals fake," Hale said flatly. The judge's mouth snapped shut. The general walked toward the display of medals, picked them up with careful respect, and addressed the room like a commander leading troops into battle. "Let me make something clear for the record." He lifted the silver star. This medal was awarded after Lieutenant Commander Ward shielded 2 wounded Marines with her own body during an ambush in Helmand. I was the approving authority. He lifted the bronze star with Valor. This one was for leading a counter-assault after their vehicle hit an IED. She dragged Sergeant Holloway, who weighed 230 pounds, across 40 yards of open fire. He lifted the Navy Commendation with the Combat V. This was for clearing a sniper nest that had already claimed 2 of our men. She went up that stairwell alone because the rest of her team was pinned. Each word hit the room like thunder. Keating's face drained of color. Hale looked directly at him. "So tell me, Judge, which part of that sounds fake to you?" The judge looked like he wanted to sink through the floor, but Hale wasn't done. He addressed the board members next. "I personally commanded 2 of her deployments. I have read every field report, every witness statement, every medical evaluation." He stepped closer to Elena, placing the medals gently in front of her. "These medals are real. The blood behind them is real. The men alive because of her? Real." Then he turned back to Keating, and this hearing should never have happened. The room was utterly still. Braxton looked relieved. Ellis looked emotional. Keating looked destroyed. General Hale pulled a classified folder from his jacket, the kind with a red stripe and warnings that screamed, "Need to know access only." "Judge Keating," he said sharply, "you questioned her record because it looked too impressive. But you never considered the simplest possibility, that Lieutenant Commander Ward is exactly who she claims to be." He handed the folder to Braxton. "These are operation logs, citations, and after-action reports that were previously restricted. I received special authorization this morning to declassify the segments relevant to her case." Braxton opened the folder carefully and froze. Commander Ellis leaned over, eyes widening. Judge Keating didn't dare approach. Hale continued. "Lieutenant Commander Ward led 11 covert rescue operations under JSOC Task Force 37. She operated in environments most soldiers never see. She made decisions most commanders pray they're never forced to make." He paused, "and she did it without complaint, without recognition, without expecting anything in return." Elena looked down, fighting the pressure building behind her eyes. She hated attention, she hated being put in the spotlight, but she hated injustice more. General Hale continued, addressing the judge again. "You laughed at her medals. You mocked her record. But you weren't mocking her." He stepped closer, voice tightening. "You were mocking every soldier who served under her, Every Marine she pulled from the dirt, every family who still has a son or daughter because she refused to give up. Keating opened his mouth, but no words came out. General Hale delivered the final blow. You owe this officer an apology. The silence was suffocating. Judge Keating swallowed. His arrogance evaporated. Lieutenant Commander Ward, I may have spoken out of turn. I didn't know. Hale cut him off. You didn't want to know. Keating froze. Sir, with respect, you were only what? Hale snapped. Biased, dismissive, unprofessional? Keating shrank back into his chair. Braxton cleared his throat. General Hale, he said respectfully, based on this new information, there is no question. Lieutenant Commander Ward's record stands validated. Commander Ellis nodded firmly, but Hale wasn't finished. For the record, he said, this officer should be receiving more medals, not defending the ones she has. Then he turned to Elena, his voice softening. You deserved better than this, Commander. Elena finally looked up. Sir, I appreciate you coming, but you didn't have to. He shook his head. Yes, I did. There was a depth in his voice, something unspoken. Because the truth was, Hale had been in the command tent the night she saved those men. He'd heard the radio calls, the fear, the gunfire, the way she refused to leave anyone behind. He had watched her grow from a quiet new operator into one of the most trusted officers in his command. And he wasn't going to let some arrogant judge erase that, not on his watch. He turned back to the board. I request that this hearing be dismissed immediately. Braxton nodded. Dismissed. Ellis nodded as well. Judge Keating stayed silent, too ashamed to speak. When the gavel struck, the tension broke. The courtroom emptied slowly, staff leaving in stunned silence. Keating remained seated, staring down at his desk, realizing he had nearly destroyed the career of someone who had sacrificed more than he ever would. Elena gathered her things quietly. She wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of fighting battles she thought she'd already won. Tired of proving herself again and again. General Hale approached her. You okay? He asked gently. She nodded once. Thank you for speaking up, sir. He gave a small smile. You've done the same for others more times than I can count. Consider it returned. They stepped out into the cold hallway. For the first time that morning, Elena breathed freely. Hale placed a hand on her shoulder. You know, there's talk at the Pentagon. Your name came up for a certain assignment. She looked at him, eyebrows raised. Special activities? He smiled. No comment. She shook her head. I'm just doing my job, sir. Exactly, he said. And that's why you're being noticed. He paused. Don't let people like Keating take that from you. She didn't respond, but she didn't need to. The truth had already spoken for her. The sun was rising over Fort Halstead as Elena walked into the fresh morning air. Soldiers were performing PT runs. Flags were being raised. The base was waking up. And she felt lighter, not because the general had defended her, but because she had stood her ground long enough for the truth to catch up. As she walked past the parade field, a young enlisted woman jogging by called out, Ma'am, heard what happened inside. We're proud of you. Elena stopped. The words hit deeper than she expected. She nodded, her voice catching slightly. Thank you, Corporal. The young Marine ran on. Elena looked up at the sky, soft orange light spreading over the horizon. She wasn't a hero. She wasn't a legend. She was a soldier who tried to do the right thing, even when no one was watching, and sometimes the right people noticed after all. Courage isn't always found in battle. Sometimes it's found in staying calm when others doubt you, in standing your ground when the truth is on your side, and in having the discipline to let integrity speak louder than ego. Real honor doesn't need defending, but sometimes it needs someone brave enough to protect it.